Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The afternoon update with Lynlee Foo.
Money FM 89.3. Now, most of us don't think too much about workplace benefits until we really need them. Things like medical coverage, insurance, or support for our well-being. But across Asia, the way companies are shaping these benefits is starting to shift. Costs are going up, employees are asking for more, and HR teams are looking at how to strike the right balance. A new report by the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, or CIPD, and AIA takes a closer look at what's changing in Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. With me to share the findings is May Leng Kwok, Head of Market Development at CIPD. May Leng, maybe we start with the big picture. What's behind these changes right now?
So, the main changes right now, what we are seeing in terms of top pressures in Singapore is rising medical costs. And the number one pressure point for employers here is 60% of them are citing costs as the top influencing benefits factor, almost double what you see in Hong Kong, and higher than Malaysia at 54%. Medical inflation is another big one. It's doubled since 2020, putting employers under huge pressure to manage costs. So digital transformation is also a big driver for us. Benefits programs are increasingly expected to be digitally accessible, personalized, and data-driven. So employers are really walking a tightrope here between balancing costs whilst modernizing benefits delivery.
Wow, a combination of rising costs and technology. That's a lot for companies to juggle, especially when employees are also expecting more, not less. And your report compares Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. Did you see differences in how each market is approaching benefits?
We did, although we did see a lot of shared challenges, but the context matters here. So Singapore is dominated by cost pressures, so 70% of employers cite this compared to an average of 60% across Asia. Malaysia puts more weight on employee feedback. Half of employees there cite this, and Hong Kong tends to be more compliance-driven. So they're slower to expand flexible work, remote working, compared to their counterparts. So this really shows us how local context shapes how employers prioritize and respond.
Okay, and is it true that Malaysia leads in gathering employee feedback? More than half of organizations there do it.
Yes. Yeah, to be fair, it was a starking contrast to anywhere else in the world. The average really is that only a quarter of organizations are gathering employee feedback, whereas in Malaysia, almost half of them have. Many companies still design benefits top-down based on budgets and legacy packages rather than consulting staff. And so this does lead to trust issues for some organizations. And really the best way to design your benefits is to understand what people actually want and use metrics to measure and assess.
Okay, interesting. So even within Asia, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So how are younger generations, especially Gen Z, entering the workforce, influencing the types of benefits employers now need to consider?
So this is a big one. So for the first time ever, which, I'm sure has been widely reported, we have 5 generations in the workforce, and they vary very, very greatly. So you see, it's the baby boomer generation. They want something that's more stable. They prefer financial security, long-term care, and it really matters to them, the reputation of the service providers that they go for. Whereas Gen X, we call this largely the sandwich generation because they really are in between the two. So they want digital channels for convenience, but at the same time, just like the older generation, they value expert advice. And then you've got millennials, which is going to be the majority of the workforce very soon. But they've grown up on the internet. So they want everything digital first, cost transparency. They want emotionally positive experiences. So if it doesn't feel personal, they'll walk away. And then, of course, Gen Z, this is the emerging workforce, their expectations are actually already reshaping healthcare. Many don't have regular doctors. They only seek care when they need it. And they tend to listen to peers rather than listen to experts. But they do prioritize preventative care, holistic wellness, and on-demand access.
Okay, so it's not just about pay, it's about experiences, like you mentioned, and about values too, isn't it?
Absolutely. So for us in HR, for leaders, it's really about how you're able to balance what your employer, what your organization values, and what the employees value and expect.
Okay, May. One finding stood out to me. Life and accident insurance, hospitalization, and outpatient coverage remain the most common benefits, but provision has actually declined since last year. What does that tell us?
Yeah, so even though it is the most consistent popular 3, they've all declined by at least 6 to 8% since last year. So this is a really worrying disconnect, Lynlee. It shows us that cost-cutting is hitting benefits that matter most to employees. And the risk here is that it undermines satisfaction, engagement, and loyalty, particularly in a very competitive labor market like Singapore.
So the traditional staples are shrinking, while other areas are quietly moving up the priority list?
I wouldn't say they're necessarily moving up. They're just moving up at a slower rate to the decline that we're seeing in well-being, training, and flexible work.
And all this while employees are asking for flexibility, training, well-being. But those seem to be the areas companies are cutting back on. Why?
It's a very good question. So I think these are usually the areas that most employers are not very sound in measuring ROI on. So it's been an age-old adage where you will get HR practitioners questioned on what is the return on investment on the training here. And well-being is one of those that's quite difficult to pinpoint. So again, this lack of measurement, this lack of benchmarking that we're seeing out there directly translates to this. So this is, again, where organizations need to do a better job of being able to define their metrics in terms of success and be able to measure and track the impact that their well-being initiatives, their training and development initiatives, their flexible working initiatives in terms of the ROI, and most importantly, how it's adding impact and value to the organization.
I think the biggest risk here is disengagement, isn't it? Because once people disengage, it's hard to win them back.
It's really, really hard. It's the same as, when we say once trust is broken, it's really difficult to win back, isn't it? So it's in line with that. So for us, what we do say is talk to your employees. You need to build that element of trust, especially through difficult times. And there's absolutely possibilities for you to be able to align what's important to your employees and to the business. So, for example, we can align business goals such as productivity while supporting employee well-being by adjusting our flexible work policies. If the company's goal is to future-proof skills, then we can invest in training and development so that we can meet employees' need for career growth. So these are both in the top three.
Okay. I'd like to touch on mental health, which came up as both a priority for employers and an area with low employee requests. How do you explain that gap, and what role does stigma still play in Asia?
Unfortunately, the stigma is still very real in Asia. Only 1 in 10 employees openly request mental health support, while a quarter of organizations say mental health is a future priority. So employers can tackle this through normalization. Leaders, first and foremost, need to role model it, because if you don't show vulnerability and if you don't show that you're also impacted by stress, by mental well-being, it's really difficult for your employees to open up. Offering confidential access to mental health services has to be there, and a lot of them do this through their EAP programs, and framing support as part of overall productivity and retention, not just as healthcare.
So in this regard, would you say progress will come down to changing perceptions as much as policy?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. It's the perception of all of this that's actually holding back, which is why stigma is so real in Asia. It's still seen as something that people are ashamed of, or they feel guilty for feeling it, as if they're not resilient. So in order for us to battle this, we must be able to normalize these conversations in the workplace. Just as normal as it is for people to say that they need to go to the doctor because they have flu. You need to be able to say, I need support for my mental well-being.
Okay. Now, talking about employers again, how are employers deciding what to cut and what to invest in?
So this is the tightrope that a lot of them are walking right now. So they make that decision between what to keep and what to cut. And again, the answer comes back to, do you have the data to help you decide? So employers are weighing budgetary constraints, which is around 60% of them, against employee expectations, which is around 40%. So many still take that top-down approach, like I mentioned before, making decisions based on budget and legacy packages. So it's doing what we've always done, rather than looking at what do we need to do that meets today's needs and demands of our employees. And this means starting with data and actually talking to your staff. There are some organizations that are forward-looking, starting to use feedback surveys more, people analytics, benchmarking to make smarter trade-offs. That way, every dollar spent is aligned to both cost control and what employees actually value.
Okay, I see now. And that explains why you saw concerns about data and benchmarking jump so sharply.
Indeed.
Okay, what does that surge in concern tell us about decision-making today?
That's a really insightful question. So that surge highlights that organizations lack visibility into what good benefits actually look like in the marketplace. So as we've seen, it's not a one-size-fits-all anymore. And all organizations are facing 5 generations for the first time. They're very used to having one budget, set one time during the year, they're not used to this new construct. So without benchmarking, many risk overspending in some areas and under-delivering in others. So it shows a growing recognition that data-driven insights are essential. They're no longer a nice-to-have. Otherwise, you're not going to design the benefits that balance costs and the employee needs.
Okay, it's not just about the budget. It's really about having the right information to make smarter and better choices. Now, looking ahead, May, companies can't just keep trimming benefits, I suppose. What should they be doing now to future-proof their strategies?
Employers are shifting towards high-impact, cost-effective benefits such as outpatient cover, mental health support, and flexible work. So they are also leveraging digital tools to personalize benefits and measure impact more effectively. So cost optimization is less about cutting benefits altogether. It's more about aligning investment with what employees truly value.
Okay, that really reframes benefits as a business lever, not just a perk. Do you think they can still be a real competitive advantage, benefits, especially in such a tight labor market?
Absolutely. Our organizations need to shift this mindset. They need to stop seeing benefits as just a perk, as just a hygiene factor, because it is a strategic lever, especially when it comes to talent attraction and talent retention. Well-designed packages improve satisfaction, well-being, loyalty, while misaligned ones increase disengagement and attrition. So employees who invest in benefits aligned, again, to what employees need, they can really differentiate themselves in a talent marketplace. And if they can align it with what their organizations value, that's a win-win all round.
Okay, that's when benefits move from being a nice-to-have to a reason someone stays. Wait, when benefits are cut back, what alternatives like flexible work arrangements or perhaps career development opportunities can still deliver value without adding major cost?
Absolutely. There are many ways in order to sort of readjust your strategy for employee benefits. You've already counted off a couple flexible work arrangements. So this isn't just about seeing where I work, whether I work from home or I work in the office. Flexible work arrangements is also around the time of when you do your work. It's also around autonomy of the work that you do. It's generally just having more control over the tasks and the scope of your role. And I think, again, a lot of organizations are missing the trick here in terms of how they can align that better to what their employees actually want. When it comes to career development, it doesn't have to be expensive. Doesn't mean you have to send people on training programs, on expensive development journeys. Even if you were to create coaching and mentoring programs within the organization, you're still supporting people in their career growth. And of course, when it comes to nurturing that employee voice and giving that lending ear to employees that are stressed, this is where the leadership role plays a big part. Being able to role model and being able to support their employees through their difficult times by being a lending ear and an empathetic ear. Okay,
let me ask you this. You're the expert here. If we fast forward 5 years, what might the ideal benefits package look like in this region?
If only I had a crystal ball, Lynlee. But if I was going to hazard a guess and just looking at just general customer behavior in today's world, it's going to have to be more personalized. It's got to be more flexible, and it has to be digital first. So I would expect a stronger mix of core protections in your basic insurance. So definitely more outpatients, because we're seeing a lot of people right now having to pay out of pocket more. And this is really causing a pinch when your money's not going as far as it used to. So holistic benefits like mental health support, career development, flexible work should be norms. It's not a nice to have. They should be norms. The packages will be guided by real-time employee feedback and data insights. So that ideal package that we're looking at can strike that balance between financial security, well-being, and growth opportunities that are actually tailored to individual employee needs.
Wow. Well, I think ultimately it's not just a list of entitlements, but a reflection of how companies value their people.
Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, benefits are about people, and the future will be more personal, flexible, and digital. So organizations need to balance that to win that win-win in engagement, loyalty, and performance.
May Leng, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights.
It's been a real pleasure to be on the show, Lynlee. Thank you so much.
Have a good day ahead.
You too.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.